Although this movie isn't groundbreaking, it can't be denied that this movie does something truly incredible. It takes the two most murderous versions of Batman, puts them in the same movie, and then has them kill absolutely nobody.
What's up, schmucks? I hope you're having a lovely day. Today we're going to talk about The Flash, a movie that was being hyped up for quite a while now. Tom Cruise said it was the kind of movie the world needs right now. Stephen King said it was something special, and every fan who saw it early said it was peak in every way. But, as everyone knows, a movie's true level of quality is only decided when it does or doesn't get the RoastTurkey seal of approval. Don't look at me like that, Ridley. Everyone knows this is the rule.
You're embarrassing. Você é idiota.
Anyway, is The Flash the movie we need right now? Is it particularly special? Is it truly peak in every way? And most importantly, does it get the RoastTurkey seal of approval? Well, I'm here to tell you, no. No on every count. But it's easy to say a movie is or isn't good. That's not hard. But we never do anything the easy way here, so I'm gonna explain why this movie didn't work for me. So, as always, we're gonna start with the good and what I liked here, and then we'll get to the bad and what I didn't care for. So here we go. The Flash is the latest superhero / comic book movie to release in 2023. It stars Ezra Miller as Barry Allen the Flash. The Flash is a speedster, meaning he can move at incredible speeds. Speeds so incredible that he can actually time travel. So, he decides to use this power to go back in time and prevent the death of his mother, who died when he was a child. However, by doing this, he inadvertently screws up the universe and ends up in an alternate timeline with a younger version of himself, General Zod and his invasion from Man of Steel, a Supergirl instead of a Superman, and Michael Keaton's Batman. So now, the Flash has to rally this team to fight Zod and save the world, while also trying to find a way back to his own time. Okay, so starting positive, let's talk performances. Now, look, I don't want to say a good thing about Ezra Miller. In case you don't know, not a great person. But, and I will try to keep this brief, I thought Ezra Miller was really good in this. I've never been a massive fan of this take on Barry Allen, but here I found Barry to be a pretty enjoyable character. Kinda off-putting and weird, but in a way that I felt worked and made sense. Miller plays two Barrys in this movie, with the main Barry Allen and then a younger Barry Allen, and I think Ezra played it pretty well. Not to say that they are the only person that could have played this role. I think you could have given this character to any number of people in Hollywood. I'm just saying, given what I've been presented, I can't come back to you and say that Ezra Miller was bad in this role, because I just don't think that's the case. Ezra plays the older Barry really well as this seasoned hero who's already great at what he does and knows the ins and outs of his powers. And on the flip side, they play the younger version of Barry really well as this new metahuman first experiencing his powers and learning how it all works. And I thought the pairing of those two characters was really fantastic and absolutely one of the best things the movie had going for it. There's a portion of this movie that's just the two Barrys hanging out and being bros, and I really liked that. I thought there was a lot of fun moments that came out of it, and the dual roles look great visually. I don't know what techniques they used for this, but the two Barrys being in the same room together looks incredible. Okay, that's enough nice things about Ezra Miller. Let's talk about Batman. Since Batman was a huge part of this movie's marketing campaign, Ben Affleck returns as Batman in this, probably for the last time, but I thought Batfleck was really good in this. Used sparingly, but Ben Affleck gives a really good performance for the 3 seconds he's in this. Andy Muschietti is the director of this movie, and he does some really solid comic booky things with Batman visually in this movie. Things that fit with these versions of The Dark Knight, but might feel out of place with a Robert Pattinson Batman. So hopefully, when he does Brave and the Bold, we get even more comic booky Batman stuff. As for Michael Keaton's return to the role of the Caped Crusader, pretty fucking spectacular. I think Michael Keaton's performance as Batman was always fantastic. It was just the characterization of that Batman that I never cared for. Good performance, bad Batman. But regardless, I was so happy to see him return, and the Danny Elfman score kicking in every time he so much as breathes got me so amped. But that's all the nice things I can say about his inclusion. He looks great, and Keaton's great. Also, all of his best moments are in the trailers, which I did not appreciate. But how about Sasha Calle as Kara Zor-El? Absolutely magnificent. She was incredible. I've always really liked Supergirl. I always liked the idea of a younger, more reckless, less disciplined Kryptonian hero as a juxtaposition to Superman. And while this isn't that exact version of Kara entirely, as this version is a blend of the standard Supergirl and Superman from the Flashpoint comic, I think it's a healthy enough blend that Supergirl fans will be satisfied, and the character works adequately well for the story being told here. And Sasha Calle gives a really strong performance performance in this. She has that rage and that fire in her line delivery that this character needs for some of these scenes, but she also has that twinkle in her eye that Supergirl often has. Also, and I've talked about this before, I'm Guatemalan, and seeing Latino actors portray superheroes in these blockbusters is really special to me. I would have loved that as a kid, and it makes me really happy that there are kids out there who will have this actress playing an iconic hero who looks like them. I think that's really cool and really special. But beyond characters, what else was good here? Some of the plot. Like I said earlier, there's a section of this movie where the two Barrys are just hanging out, and that I thought was really interesting. The movie is able to cover the ground of someone gaining their powers and experiencing them for the first time, while also displaying that same person as a seasoned hero. The movie simultaneously does an origin story and a just another adventure for the Flash story, which I thought was actually really neat. Like, that stuff was genuinely the most enjoyable segment of the runtime. This movie also does some things to flesh out Barry's past as a hero and how he ties into this wider DC universe that's about to die, and I thought that stuff was really interesting. I also thought some of the things the movie does to display Flash's speed was really creative and cool, and some of the action in this I thought was also really solid. The Batman stuff was all great, and Flash has a pretty good action moment set to Salute Your Solution, which I really liked, but I think I liked it because I like the song, and the needle drop won me over more than the scene itself did. And the final thing I want to praise is one moment towards the end of the movie that genuinely sucker punched my heart. It's the big emotional moment of the film, and it really worked on me. But it can't all be good, so let's talk about the bad. My biggest complaint with Barry in this movie is that by the time the credits roll, he hasn't grown, but the movie seems to think he has. The theme of this movie is that moving on is okay, and allowing your past to stay your past and moving forward with yourself is the correct response to tragedy. And there comes a moment in the third act where Barry realizes this, and then he gives a little speech about how he realized this, only for him to not actually learn his lesson because of the things he does after that little speech. The fact that his arc is completed and then ruined in the span of 10 minutes really pissed me off. Speaking of this movie's theme, the concept of moving on is good really falls flat in a meta kind of way. The movie is telling me that moving on and not holding on to the past is a good thing, but it's telling me this while also screaming at me, remember Man of Steel? Remember the Burton Batman movies? Do you remember all of this? It's so ironic it's stupid. Something I don't remember though is Keaton's Batman being an idiot. He might be, I genuinely don't remember, but he is in this movie. He's so blatantly stupid it borders on parody. The decisions he makes and the things he does, he's just so laughably dumb, and a lot of it really just took me out of the movie because he's Batman. He shouldn't be a moron. The movie also has nothing to add to him as a character. Like, him coming back in this movie meant nothing. It was just for the sake of, remember this? Do you remember this? Ooh, look! Do you remember this? This type of shit I've really grown to hate, and I will thus be referring to it as monkey brain content. You know, the shit that's like, ooh, I see thing I remember. Me likey. You know, the No Way Home effect. But Keaton in this movie is a Batman who's hung up the cape and cowl. But what has his life been like since then? Is he rusty? Does he have any crippling injuries he has to work around? What's his life been like since the last time we saw him? Is he even the same Batman from the Tim Burton movies? Like, I get that this isn't his movie, and there really isn't time to address these things, nor should there be. But when you bring back a character who audiences haven't seen since their last movie in 1992, 30 years ago, it's gonna have them asking questions. But unfortunately, Keaton's Batman is here to sell the movie. He's here because he's iconic in the role, and the creatives knew it would get butts in seats. He's not here because the writers or the director had an interesting idea of what to do with him. He's not here because anyone at Warner Brothers had an interesting idea of what to do with him. He's here because people knew his inclusion would sell tickets. Also, while on the topic of Batman, the opening sequence with Batman is lame as shit. I don't care about Batman and the Flash stopping terrorists. Give me the Rogues. Why is this movie so obsessed with Man of Steel and the Burton Batman movies? Put actual Flash characters in the Flash movie. Come on. As for Supergirl, she faces a similar problem. The movie introduces her, gives her a few cool moments, but ultimately does nothing with her. She landed on Earth and was immediately thrown into imprisonment, but we never get to see the toll that took on her, except for when she's briefly like, my only experience with the human race has been negative, fuck these guys. Until 5 minutes later when she's like, nah, they're alright actually. The movie wanted a cool new iteration of Kara Zor-El and gave it to us, but gave it to us in the most toothless and lazy way they could. This whole movie feels that that way. Like it was made with minimum effort and little to no care for the characters or the stories. The movie also treats Keaton, Batman, and Supergirl like surprises. The way their introductions to the movie are shot and designed are done in a way that makes them feel like reveals. But they were front and center for the marketing. Sasha Calle even single-handedly carried the press tour. But these scenes come off so weird because the movie insists these are big reveals that should elicit big reactions from us. But we know they're in the movie. They're in the trailers and on the poster and everything. It just comes off as really weird, like they were meant to be hidden until release or something. And that's probably the one thing I dislike most about this movie. How much of it hinges on referencing things that came before. This movie doesn't feel like a definitive Flash movie because of how much it relies on other movies to tell its story and fill in the details. The first hour of this movie works as its own thing, and the rest of it begs you to think about other DC movies to get a full grasp of the plot. This movie also does things with the concept of the multiverse, but not in an interesting way. Not in any way at all, actually. It's just there for the sake of cheap cameos and nostalgia, and then it's gone. It just feels like a total waste of the concept. Everything Everywhere All at Once and Across the Spider-Verse do the multiverse in a beautiful and interesting way that intrigues and excites you. This movie uses it like a tacky gimmick, and it entirely falls flat. And I said before that some of the things this movie does to display Flash's speed are cool, like this visual of how the world bends around Barry before he just soars through it. But most of this movie does speed the way X-Men did Quicksilver speed, with Barry being so fast he's moving in slow motion. I'm sick of it. I want better super speed in my comic book movies. Eternals did it differently, and it was awesome. This movie just has everyone going real slow while Barry ice skates around with wonky CGI, and I didn't care for that. And like I said, this movie is really solid when it's the two Barrys just hanging out, but once Zod and Keaton present themselves to the movie, the whole thing nosedives. From that point to the end, I was not having a good time. Aside from Supergirl's 45 seconds of screen time, that was great. The movie loses its flair and intrigue and becomes another generic superhero movie for the ever-growing pile. This movie was hailed as what audiences need right now. It was called something special, and its praises were sung by millions of people around the world, and yet, when all is said and done, this movie lived up to none of that for me, and ultimately fell flat on its face. While the lead is largely enjoyable, some of the action is fun, and Sasha Calle steals the show, the movie can't outrun a generic plot, poorly used characters who are here exclusively for nostalgia bait, a lack of interesting ideas for its story and visuals, unimpressive effects, a character arc that implodes by the end, and an overall sense of emptiness in many of its endeavors. Also, there's a sequence towards the end that feels really disrespectful to a lot of different people across DC's history, and I didn't like any of that at all. But did you see The Flash? If you did, I'd love to know what you thought about it. Maybe it absolutely lived up to the hype for you, but unfortunately for me, it didn't. That's all I have to say at this time. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day.